Okay, good evening,
Yes, I can hear
Pelumi.
you.
Good evening. Good evening, Esther. Good evening, Ibrahim. Good evening, everyone. Okay, good evening. Yes, so today is another session. I think we've enjoyed the session so far. And like I said, we have a special guest here today. So from our screen, can we all see screen? Let's just clarify.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So we have the the Honorable Muhsin Hameed. Like we can see, is a Microsoft certified trainer, is a Power Platform developer, is a Power Platform app maker, and is a Power BI data analyst. Muhsin has done a lot of things in the Power Platform community. He has trained a lot of people for both free and is one of the leading pioneers of the Power Platform Nigeria group. So when I said we have a special guest here, we actually have a special guest here. Hi Musin, are you there? Would you like to say a word before you proceed?
Hey, thank you, Joseph. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure being here with us. Thank you very much. Um, Joseph, am I starting already?
Yes, I guess you can start. The rest
Okay,
will just join us. They will watch the recording.
great. All right. Yeah, so good evening, everybody. Once again, you're welcome to this session, Power BI. I'm aware we've had a lot of discussions, conversations before now, and we'll be stepping up from whatever we have had so far and where we stopped in our last session. It's a pleasure being here. Like I said earlier, it's one of the things we do just so we see how we can assist ourselves further. And I'm happy that some of us we took on to this opportunity to learn a few things. We understand how the job market is at the moment, and a lot of things are happening. So we need to skill up, we need to own a number of skills, be proficient at it, and we have so much opportunities come our way. I wouldn't want to bore us with so much talk. I know since this has started for quite a while, so a number of things would have been said to us. We've had quite a lot of conversations. But now I just want to go straight to the point. Like Joseph mentioned, my name is Muhsin Hameed. I am the program manager for the Power Platform User Group Nigeria. So Power Platform shouldn't be new to any one of us anymore. Power BI is a member of the Power Platform family. We have about 5 products there. And Power BI that we're learning at the moment is one of the key members in that family. It's a field with so much career prospect. I would want to say that with so much confidence and boldness, depending on how much effort we put into learning this, depending on how much we strive to own our skills in this path, there are lots to come out of this particular space. So if this is something that interests you, try to put in as much effort as you can, and you will appreciate yourself. You will appreciate, you look back at this time, you'll be happy that you were able to do all of this in the near future. So I'll go straight into this. I'll bring up my Power BI file. I was told I will be discussing visualizations today. So I'm gonna bring this up on my screen now. All right, so this is my Power BI file, which I know we understand the interface. We really do. Probably we've had some talks around it already, but just so to confirm, I like that I validate my assumptions. I really do not like to assume too much. And when I do, I want to validate it so that I'm sure I'm not assuming wrongly. On the left side of my screen, if I go to the left side of my screen, I have some icons here. The one in the middle, what is it called? Quickly, anybody? This middle icon here, what is it called?
That's the data view.
The data view. Thank you, Pelumi. All right, the last one. I don't want to show that. Okay,
That's the
establish a data view also. All right. So what's the last one called?
modeling. Model.
Model view. All right. Thank you so much for that. In our last class, we already discussed data modeling as I was informed. So today we'll just go straight into data visualization, but bear in mind that before you want to visualize, you have done quite a number of things. So we have what is called the reporting and analytics life cycle. And in that life cycle, essentially you are doing three things basically. That's what you're doing. There are some offshoots to it. It might stem into say 4 or 5 things that you're doing, but the basic things that you'll be doing are just three, which is the first thing. Okay, let me put this to us. When you want to start working in Power BI, what is the first thing you do? What do you start with when you're working in Power BI? You open a Power BI file, a fresh Power BI file. What is the first thing you do?
I guess
Anybody?
you bring in the data you want to use.
You're bringing the data
I
you
said,
want to use. Excellent, Belumi. Thank you so much. The first thing you do, regardless of the tool now, I'm speaking generally. So you're doing Power BI, you're using Tableau, you're using Click, you're using even Excel, whatever tool you want to use to analyze, you extract. Thank you for that. So the first thing you want to do is what is called data discovery. They call it data discovery. Some people call it data extraction. Some people call it data gathering. All of this mean that you identify the data sets you want to work with and you bring it into, you ingest it into the tool that you want to use. So that is the first thing. After you have brought in your data, premising on the fact that your data is clean, you have transformed your data, you have structured it the way we have been taught to structure our data, then you go on to what is called data modeling. So data modeling is the intermediate stage. And on that step, what you're doing essentially is so to probably you want to create a relationship between your table, you want to adjust some connections, you want to direct the filtering of your data set from the dimension to the fact file, and all of these are things that you do on the modeling stage. After your modeling, when your data has been modeled correctly, perfectly, then you go on to visualize. And that is what end users would say. A lot of us would have seen on social media, probably before now, where people would post some dashboards, some reports. They're marvelous, they're nice, they're neat. This is the end point. So much work would have been done in the backyard to ensure that that comes out well. And the works that you would do before you get to that visualization stage are the things you do on the first two steps. So you are ingesting your data and you're also transforming. That's step one. And then you're going to step number two, which is you are modeling your data. So today we want to now go on to visualization. So I have my data model here. I have my tables here, my dimension files. I like to put them at the top. I put my fact file just below. So to see that waterfall approach. So I'll come here to the report view. It's on the report view that you build your visualizations, your reports. You do that on your report view, and the center, this white space where you'll be building your report is what is called a canvas. So that is the report canvas. So on this particular page, we have the filters pane, we have the visualizations pane, and we have the fields pane. The fields pane, I have on it all my tables, the different tables that I have in this report. Technically, I have about 5 tables here. I have my calendar, model, region, fact sales, and LOB. We are very familiar with this data set. So on the visualizations pane, that's where you do most of your selections. On the visualizations pane, we have a lot of options, a lot of visuals. You call it visuals in Power BI. So, and when you say visuals, you're talking about everything that you need or you would use to visualize your data. Typically, you would want to use some tables, you want to use some graphs or charts. I want to assume that graphs and charts remain the same, technically. So your tables and your charts, they are what we call visuals in Power BI. So when somebody say that, what visual are you using? You let your mind track the fact that the person is talking about your charts or your tables. So we have a lot of options when it comes to the visual that we can use in Power BI. So at the start, it might seem that, okay, what's the name of all these visuals? But when you begin to hover your mouse on it, you'll say the name. So this is a stacked bar chart. Next to it is a stacked column chart. So if I come down, this is a line chart. If I come to this side, this is a card. If I come here, this is a Q&A visual. If I come here, this is a multi-row card and all of those. We have this as the standard visuals for Power BI. A lot of visuals. How do you know when to use what? This might be a bit more advanced conversation, but some of these things are things that we need to try out. So in the visualization for Power BI, we have two categories essentially. I would like that we take some note. I didn't prepare a slide for this. I didn't have so much time to get into that. I would have prepared something that I can share with you, but unfortunately, I do not have that. But I hope that we are taking down some notes. Hopefully, we can get some key points out of this conversation. Visualizations in Power BI, we have two categories of visuals. We have the standard visuals and we have the custom visuals. The standard visuals are those visuals that are pre-installed within your Power BI. So whenever you open a Power BI file, you have some visuals that you see by default. So most of these that you have here, most of this here, they are your standard visuals up to somewhere here, not completely everything here. They are your standard visuals in Power BI. And if you look at your own Power BI file, you see that you have most of these. But there are some visuals that I have here that you may not have. Some of those are, for instance, this one that I have here, this is the scroller. I have some Zebra BI visuals here. I have this one is an image viewer sort of in Power BI and stuff. So these ones that you don't have by default, they are your custom visuals. So the way Power BI is, and in Microsoft ecosystem, there are a lot of community contributions that come into their product. So they have people who have on their own self built some visuals, organizations, individual, they build some visuals, and they have it in what's called a market store. So it is from the market store that you now go in to get those custom visuals. So the custom visuals, some of them are free, some of them are paid for, depending on what you want to achieve within your visualization. That would be what would influence what kind of visuals you would use. So not every time would you get a visual in Power BI that is part of this default visual that you want to use. There are some that are outside of the default visuals that you want to bring in. Then when you do that, you're bringing in a custom visual. We'll see that hopefully before we round up the session. So when I want to start my visualization, you should have planned out your report. That's what I say to people. The same way you want to do some presentations. Don't go immediately into PowerPoint and start putting together your slides. Plan out your presentation outside of PowerPoint before you go into PowerPoint, because that's way you would not have your ideas confined. If you go straight into PowerPoint, you are restricted in your ideas. The flow will not be smooth again because you're already thinking around the build. So, but plan it out, have your ideas dumped and stuff. So the same thing happens in Power BI. Have a sketch somewhere. You can do a whiteboard sketch. Have a sketch of, okay, I want to put this visual here. I want to put this here. I want to put a title here. I want to put a footer here. All of those plans, have them properly put together before you come into Power BI. So I'm assuming now that I have that plan. Of course, I have the plan in my head. I can always reproduce it. But what I would advise is, for whatever projects, have a plan outside, have a sketch somewhere, and then begin to now build. So let's start building our reports now. So one of what we want to see, looking at our data set, is that, for instance, we want to see if I come here to my fact sales table. Here we have some columns here. Okay, maybe I want to see an aggregation of my revenue. I want to know how much is our total revenue. I can come to my report view, and I will come here to my visualizations pane. There is a nice visual here that can show you single figures. You want to see total revenue, total units sold, average revenue. You can visualize those single figures on this card, and you see 1, 2, 3 on it. So if I select card, once I select card, it drops it on my canvas. I can resize it a bit nicely. So this might be too big, so I can just come to the edge and have it resized. Once I get a size that I want, what I can do is I'll just come to my fact sales. I'll click on the drop down, and then I go to my revenue. This is my revenues column. So once I tick it, you just check in this box. you'll see that you get instantly what your total revenue is. It drops. This shows us what our total revenue is. For your numeric columns, I'll show us something now. If I duplicate this, how do I duplicate this card visual? Of course, you can always go to your visualization pane and select it again. But once you have one like this, I can also duplicate. I can do Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V. It gives me a copy of it. Another thing I do, I'll give you a trick quickly so that I can understand the alignment of my items on the visual. So I'll go to my View tab. And when I go to the View tab, you see grid lines here. So I'll select grid lines so that it shows me how I'm aligning everything. So it just shows me how things are aligned, how things are arranged on the report. All right. So now, for this one now, if I want to remove what is here, remember that it is the revenue column that I selected, I put here. If I want to remove this, I'll just come under my visualization pane. You'll see the field here. Let me just zoom into this. You see the fields, and the revenue is what we dropped on that field. For the moment, I will take off this revenue. I'll just click on this X. I'll take it off. Once I do that, you see that my card is empty now. Then I'll come back here. Let me select line of business, for instance, or let me select day category. I'll select day category. And what do I see here? So this one is telling me, I'll just make this a bit big for the moment. It's telling me local holiday. Why is it telling me local holiday? Because there are some AI features that are in play in Power BI. For some reasons, when I selected revenue and I dropped it onto this card, Power BI was able to sense that this is a numbers column. And because it is a numbers column, maybe as the user, what you want to see is you want to see an aggregate of it. You want to see the sum. That was why Power BI did a summation of that, of all the values in my revenues column, and dropped it here for me, 73 billion. But when I did the same thing for a column that is not of numeric values, what it did was that it just selected the first item in that column, and that's what it dropped here for me. So what is the difference? When I worked on a numbers column, it's aggregated. When I worked on a text column, it's technically, it didn't see figures there, so you cannot aggregate anything. That's why it's returned the first thing. So we can always force Power BI to do what we want. I will do Ctrl+Z here so that it just returns the size. And then I will come back to my fields. I will remove this. I would add my revenue again. And once I do that, you see that I have 73 billion again. It has done a sum again. So, but I can tell Power BI that at this point, I don't want you to do a sum. I want you to do the aggregation with a different calculation. Maybe I want to see the average revenue. That's what I want to see. I want to see the maximum revenue or the minimum revenue per transaction. If that is what I want to see, then I can explicitly tell Power BI that this is what I want to see. And how do I do that? I will just have my card selected this way. Remember, this has done the sum. I will come here to my fields pane. Here that I have the fields, I will click on this drop down. If you want to remove, you click on this X. But if you want to change your calculations, you click on this drop down. And when you click on it, see that the sum is selected. So at the moment, it's doing a sum. And these are all the other calculations that we can do. So we can do average, you can do minimum, you can do maximum, and all of sort. So I'll select average, and immediately I select average, you see that the calculation changes, and now I have 2.3 million as the average of my revenue. Excellent. So that is a way to alter what calculation Power BI does by default. Power BI is thinking, it's a machine. It's not always correct. It's just thinking that this is what you want, but you can explicitly tell it that no, this is not what I want. This is what I want for this. So we have this. I'll duplicate this again. I'll put it somewhere here. Of course, as you're dragging around, you see some lines to assist you as well. So let's say for this one, we want to just see our minimum revenue. So I want to see our minimum revenue. So 120 is what we made as our minimum revenue. And quickly, what I will do next is I will duplicate. Let me see if I can select these three. I I want to select these three. Let me see. Okay, why is this one not selected? So I can do Control C, Control V, and I'll place them here. So once I drop them here, so for these guys, I want to see not the revenue anymore. I want to see the units sold. So I'll remove the revenue from the fields and I'll add my units sold. Here's units sold. I'll add it here. And immediately it did what again? The sum. It has summed up our units sold. So we have 787K units sold of all items. And for this one, we want to see the same thing, but a different calculation here. So I'll select my units sold and I'll come to this drop down and I'll do average. So what's the average units we're selling? 25.54. I'll do for this one, instead of this, I'll select units sold. I'll come to this drop down and I'll select minimum. So the minimum units sold was 1 unit. Okay, you might begin to investigate what was that, but that's a different conversation. So after we have seen all of these are just single figures for revenue for units sold. You might want to do some things differently. So let me just see if I can resize this a bit so that this shows, it shows the title completely. I'll just this one, and this one. Okay, so let's now go a bit further now. We'll now begin to see some breakdown for our revenue figures. Our revenue figure 73 billion, that is a lump sum. We want to see some things differently. Maybe how much are we making from our different line of business? How much are we making from our different models? So these are some of the things that we may want to see. Well, let's begin with this. We have a table for our location. So we have a D region. If I come to my D region table, we have region, market, and store. So let's assume we want to see the breakdown of our revenue by region. How do I do that? I can do it in 2 different ways. What I can do is I can come here to my visuals. Let me say I want to use the stacked bar chart. I'll select the chart and I'll just try to place it a bit nicely. Let me maybe something like this. It should just sit this way. I'm thinking this is fine. And so once you select this visual, observe that for whatever visual you select, there are different fields you see under your visualization. What I mean by fields. Now that we selected our stacked bar chart, these are the fields that we see here. So you have a y-axis, you have a x-axis, a legend, and small multiples. Your y-axis, that's a typical y-axis, the vertical axis. Your x-axis, that is the axis that goes left to right. And your legend, if you have multiple categories that you want to visualize, you drop them on the legend so that there will be a sort of a color distinction between the different parts of the bar or the column. And your small multiples, if you want to break your fields down, different categories having their own portion of that particular report. So this is typical of the bar, the column chart, and some other charts. If I change this chart for the moment, for instance, if I change this to a line chart, I am on a line chart now. You'll see that what I can see under my field is slightly different now. So I have x-axis, I had that for my column chart. Y-axis, I had that for column chart, but now I have a secondary y-axis. So which means that for a line chart, you can have 2 different y-axes. You have your primary y-axis and a secondary y-axis. And this technically will turn your chart to a sort of a combo chart depending on what you want to visualize. If I come out of this, I select any of my card visuals, our card would only have 1 field. So our card is expecting one thing. So that is one of those things that would guide you as to what chart you're selecting. So in this situation that we want to visualize our region by revenue, technically we are dealing with 2 different fields. We have a region field and we have a revenue field, which means that if we want to visualize that, we cannot use a card because a card is really expecting a single thing. That is what a card is expecting by default. So it may not make sense that we visualize something like that on a card. So by that, we would have to go with our stacked column chart. So I'll stacked bar, I'll change this to a stacked bar. And then for my y-axis, I can just come to my region. I'll select region. I'll just tick this and I go straight into my y-axis. So which means my regions will flow top to bottom. And for this region, how do I want to break it down? I want to break this down by my revenue. So I'll come to my fact sales table and I'll select revenue. So when I selected revenue, notice that my revenue dropped on the x-axis straight up. So it identified that my x-axis for a bar chart is meant to be numerical. So that's why it dropped on the x-axis. If I had selected another categorical field, a text field, it will not drop it on the x-axis, it would have dropped it on the legend, or even if it would drop it on the x-axis, it will do a count of that or some sort of calculations. So having dropped this, I got this breakdown for Northeast. I can see that how much did we make from Northeast, this very ugly figure here. We'll see how we can format that quickly later. So this is a chart now. We have the breakdown of our revenue by region. Let me add another chart. Let's say we want to quickly look at the breakdown of our revenue by line of business. So I can just duplicate this chart again, Control C, Control V, and I'll bring this somewhere down. I can place somewhere here, maybe just slightly to the top so that things are a bit aligned. And for this, my revenue is still what I want to see, but with a different breakdown. So I'll just come to my y-axis. I'll take this off. I'll select this X to take it off. And then I can come to my line of business and I'll select line of business. Once I do that, we have this. So we can see that our service plan, that's where we are making most of our revenue from service plan. And the lowest revenue is coming from printer sales. You are beginning to get some information, some insight about your data. That is the beauty of analysis. Analysis is not typically about visualization, but visualization is that will drive you towards getting to have some information, getting to know some things about what is happening within your data set. Excuse me. Your data set is completely useless if you are not visualizing, if you are not analyzing it. So it is when you begin to analyze that you see some stuff. You may not necessarily be thinking around this business that service plan is where you're getting your most revenue. You may not be thinking about it, but visualizing this now, we can see at a glance that service plan is the most performing business line. So let's say we want to go a bit further now. We want to see the trend of our sales. That's one of the best analysis you want to do. You want to see the trend of your sales figure, your revenue. Okay, how much are we making? Or how much did we make in the last fiscal year? Or how much are we making at this period? Some sort of analysis like that are things that you want to do. So go on to add a line chart. And remember, for you, if you want to visualize something around, if you want to do something around trends, your line chart is one of the best charts you can use. So I'll drop my line chart here. And when I drop my line chart, I can just make this probably slightly bigger. And for this one, I would go on to select my revenue from the fact sales. So I'll select my revenue. It drops here as a point. And then I can go onto my calendar. That's my date table. And I'll select, I want to see this by month name. So I'll select month name. And this is what I get. What is happening? Okay, for us to understand what is happening, I'll do something slightly. Let me pick a table. I'll turn this into a table. And for this table, what we observe is that for all my months, it returned the total revenue. Why is this happening? This is a situation you might be faced with when you're analyzing data. You're trying to break down your revenue figure, your unit sold figure, your financials, but you're getting the same value across. The first thing that should cross your mind is that something is wrong with my model. And that is why you need to be sure that you have taken your time to go through your entire model to be sure that things are working. If your model is properly built, you took time to model your data, you will have a hassle-free visualization and reporting. But if you did not pay attention to your model, I bet it whether you have so much headache along the line, or you eventually have to go back to that model. So why is this happening? Is it trouble of the model? So I'll go back to my model. When I get to my model, immediately I can spot it. I have my D model connected to my fact sales. So that's why when I wanted to visualize my line of business by revenue, I was able to get the individual figures for my revenue based on the different line of business, because my line of business is filtering my fact sales. There's a connection between them. The same way my region, I was able to have a breakdown of my revenue by region because my D region table is filtering my fact sales. But the same thing is not applicable between my D calendar and my fact sales table. They are not connected. So at this point, they cannot speak to themselves. April is looking at what is happening. I don't know what's happening with revenue. You are trying to match me with revenue, which I don't know. So then we need to now tell April that, April, see, guy, you need to be connected to the date on the fact sales. And by that, you now begin to talk to one another and the breakdown will now happen. So I'll come to my model. And what we'll do is for you to connect these two tables together, we need to look for a common field between them. What is that column that is common to them? On my calendar, I have a date column, and on my fact sales, I have a trade date column. Technically, my trade date on the fact sales is the date, and I have the same on my calendar. So I can pick this. I'll just click on it, I'll be selected. I'll drag it out, and I'll drop it on my calendar. Once I do that, I have this relationship established. So now my calendar is filtering the fact sales. And once I go back to my report, you see that we now have the actual figures for all our revenue. So our revenue is now able, we are not able to now break down our revenue figures by the month name because now we now have a relationship established between them. So for the moment, I'll just turn this back to my line chart, and we'll see that trend immediately. So now we can see now that it seems that March was the best month for this data set that we have. So that was the month that we made the most revenue. September seemed to be the month that we made the least revenue. But something else is still wrong with this. We can spot that. Anybody? What do you think is still wrong with this line chart?
I would say the what should be on the vertical is on the horizontal.
Okay, you mean the month name should be on the vertical axis? Is that what you're saying, Belumi?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you for that, Belumi. Anybody else? Look at it. What can you see?
Okay, I'll say our month is not starting from January.
Thank you so much, Esther. Excellent. So, Belumi, to answer your query quickly, what you mentioned is that for your line chart, you are looking at a trend. So your category should be on your x-axis. Your category should be on your x-axis. So if you are visualizing this by year, let your year be on the x-axis. That is the only way you can see the trend properly. So the problem with this is, what we know is January is meant to come first and December is meant to come last. This is confusing. Why is March coming first? Why is May following and April? Why do we have this? There is a problem. And the problem is that by default, there are some sort order within Power BI. When I say sort order, what I mean is the way Power BI sorts your categories. So what Power BI is doing at this moment is, if you are looking at this visual, at the top right, there is an ellipsis here, more options. If I click on this and I come to sort axis, what Power BI is doing now is Power BI is sorting by revenue. That's why revenue is checked, and sorting in descending order, which means that the appearance of this particular visual now is being influenced by our revenue figure. That's why we have the highest revenue first. And because it's going descending order, that's why we have the lowest revenue as the last. So if for the moment I change this revenue, instead of sorting descending, I say sort ascending. You see that the chart will turn around. And now I have September 1st, which is our lowest revenue, and going down to March, which has the highest revenue. But this is still not what I want to do. What I want to do is I want this sorting to be influenced by my month, not the revenue. So I want to see the first month first, then going down to December, which is supposedly the last month. So I'll come back to these more options, ellipsis, sort as this. Instead of revenue, I'll select month name. And when I do that, something crazy happens again. April coming first, then August, then December. What sort of sorting are you thinking about here? What sort of sorting is this? Anyone has an idea? How do you think Power BI is sorting this at the moment?
Yeah, it's this sorting is according to the highest revenue.
Okay, that's a good try, Adiola. Thank you for that, but not exactly, because if it's sorting according to IS revenue, then what we should have is the IS figure should come first, but it's going down. There's a dip here, a slight dip here as well before it goes up again. So not really being influenced by the revenue. You know, we have changed that you should sort by the month name. But what is happening at this time is that Power BI is sorting this particular chart, is sorting it based on the month name, but it is doing that in alphabetical order. So that's why we have our April 1st, then August, then going to D, E, F, then J, then J, then J, then M. So it's sorting this in alphabetical order. And that is what Power BI is meant to do by default. So if you're sorting your category, which like a text field, it's meant to do it in alphabetical order, whether ascending or descending. And if it's a numeric field, you can always do ascending or descending. So how do we now influence the sort order Power BI is doing? So what we do is that we go to our data view. Remember the data view where we can look at our data set, and then you go to your calendar table. So select the calendar table. So this is my calendar table. You can ignore these jargons that you can see here. You get to that later. Let me see. I should be able to close that. Why is the guy not closing up? All right. So let me see. Okay. So I've closed that up now. So now I have my date column here. I have year, month name, and month number. So I have my month name. That is what I want to sort. And Power BI is doing it in alphabetical order. So what we can do is that for whatever calendar table you have, ensure that you have a month number column. And by month number, what we are saying is that July is month 7. So it's 7. So if I sort this to April, I think is the 4th month. So I should see 4 for April. So which is correct. So if I come here and I select December, December should be 12. So I should see 12 as my month number. So what this is telling us is that for corresponding months, we have a number for it. So January technically will be 1. So if you have this on your calendar table, then you can now tell Power BI to use the month number to sort your month name. And by that, for December, Power BI will be seeing 12. So December will be coming last. For January, Power BI will be seeing 1. And so January will be coming first. So what we now do is select your month name, that's the column, and then under your column tools, you see this command here, sort by column. What does it say to us? Sort one column by the contents of another. Sort one column by the contents of another. So we want to sort our month name by the month number. So I'll come here to sort by column. What column do I want to use to sort my month number? You can see at the moment it's sorting by itself. That's why month name is selected. So but now we want to influence this so that it sorts by month number. So I'll come here to month number. I'll select this. And when I do that, so that's fine. I can go back to my report and everything should be fine. And now we have a January, February, March, April down to December. And now again, if you want to now do descending order for your December to come first, which I will not advise, you can go on to do that from the ellipsis. So having done this is looking practically, we are getting there already. So we have this. Let's look at one more chart quickly. Let me just see if I can reduce this. We have, let's do one chart that would make us apply some filters. Let's say that we want to see our top 10 markets by revenue. Or we start with this. We want to see our market by revenue. So I'll come here, I will add a column chart just somewhere here. I can expand this to the right, and then I'll come to my, I think market some D region. I'll select my market, and then I'll come to my fact sales. Maybe we select units sold at this time. So I want to see how much, how many, what the units we are selling from each of the markets. So at the moment, because we have quite a lot of markets, it's not looking so nice yet. So let's say we just want to limit this to the top 5 or the top 8, depending. So you want to see the top 5 and you want to see the bottom 5. Maybe that's what you want to see. So now, how do we achieve that in Power BI? Very simple. So what we need to do is have this chart selected, this chart that you want to filter down to a top 5, a top 10, you can do a top 2, you can do a top 100, depending on the number of things you want to see. So once you have it selected like this, you see that you have a filters pane. You have this filters pane. The filters pane is where you can apply filters onto your report. And my filters will mean where you can slice. You can slice these things down on your report. You don't want to see the entire thing again. You want to break things down, see just a portion of the entire thing. So you have your chart selected, and for this, under your filters pane, you see market. What is it showing? All market. That's why we can see all the markets on this visual. Units sold is showing all our units sold. So, but now we want to reduce the number of market this shows us to the top 5 by units sold. So I'll come to this market here. I'll click on this drop down. And when you do that, you see that you have a filter type. A filter type, if you do a basic filtering, it means you want to manually select what should not appear here. So if I come here to select all, or I do Abia State, it means Abia State is the only thing I want to see. If I add Adamawa, I would see Abia and Adamawa. If I add Akwa Ibom, I would see Abia, Adamawa, and Akwa Ibom. So this is basic filtering. You are just selecting what you want to see, but that's not what you want. So come here to basic filtering. I'll click on this drop down and I'll select top N. So I'll select top N, and now it's asking, you want to show items top how many? So I'll put 5 here. I want to see 5. So I'll type it 5. And then by what? You want to see, read this. You want to see the top 5 markets by what? By units sold technically. So I'll drag my units sold and I'll drop it into my values. And when you do that, nothing has happened. Why? Because you have not applied this filter. So I'll click on apply filter, and immediately this filters down to the top 5 markets. So I'm just going to resize this so it's a bit reduced like this. And then I will do Control C, Control V so that we can get a copy of it. I'll place a copy of it here. And for this one, let me just see if I can make this slightly bigger. I'll make this one slightly bigger as well. And for this one, instead of saying the top 5 markets, so I want to change this to bottom 5 markets. So I can come here to markets. So where we have top 5 by units sold, I'll click on this drop down. And then instead of doing top 5, I'll come to this drop down here, and I'll change this to bottom 5. And once you do that, you'll see that your apply filter button is activated again. So I click on that, and this shows me the bottom 5 markets. Great. So we have our report almost ready. Things are slightly, looking a bit arranged. So we can go on to now format some things on our report. Let's assume that this is all we want to see. There's still a lot of things you can see, look at on this particular data set, and I would charge us to visualize, analyze quite a lot of things from this data set. So let's quickly format. So I'll click on this, the first one. I'll click on this. And then for you to format your visual, you come to your visualizations pane. I'll click on format. By default, you'll be here. By default, you'll be on this first one, build visuals. So then I can go on to the second one, format your visuals. And how do I want to format my visual? This is what we want to format. So the first thing is this title on the y-axis, region and revenue here. I want to remove them. My title is already saying region by revenue by region. So I don't need this one on the y-axis and this one on the x-axis. So I'll come here to y-axis. Whenever you want to alter anything that has to do with y-axis, always come to the y-axis. If you want to alter anything that has to do with the x-axis, go to the x-axis. So y-axis, I'll come here, I'll click on the drop down, I'll go down and you see title. So I'll switch off the title and immediately the title goes. And then I'll just collapse this for the moment. I'll come to the x-axis. I'll look for title as well. I'll switch it off and then that goes off. Again, for my x-axis, for my charts, maybe I want to see the actual figures on the bars. So not below, so that I don't allow my users to start trying to match up the actual figures with the axis to see, okay, what does this bar stand for? I don't want them to do that. So I'll come down to data labels. So you see data labels here. I'll just switch on my data labels and immediately you see those figures come on your bars. And once you have your data labels, obviously you do not need your numbers on the axis again. So I'll come to my x-axis, I will just switch it off totally. So and this is done. So maybe again, I want to just do a bit more formatting. Maybe I want to change the color of my bars. I'll click on the bars. Maybe I want to choose, let's see, I don't know, colors anyways. So I'll just select this. Maybe this is fine. And for these, then maybe I want to just do something. I can come to the general and come to effect. So maybe the background, I want to change the background slightly. Maybe something like this. I don't know. Maybe this is fine. Or something like this. I'm confused about colors. Okay, so you can play around with some of these things. So and then you can do shadows. I really do like shadows. I can make this outside and then position, can make it center. You can change the color of your shadow, maybe to something like this, depending. And once you are done with formatting one, let's assume we are done with this one. You can just select it, go to your home tab, and you see this paint here, format painter. Select your format painter. I can take it to go and format your other visuals so that you don't have to repeat the same thing. Once you have done it for one, just go and use it to paint the other things. What happened here? I wanted to use it to paint, but I went on to select one of the bars. And that is one of the key things that we need to be aware of in Power BI. So there is cross filtering that happens. So once you select a bar on one, it filters down the other reports that you have. And immediately I selected this one, which is service plan. Our revenue figures has changed and every other thing has changed. So I need to just select this again so that it comes back, and there are ways to work around that, and that's beyond the class for now. So I'll select this, and that's one. I'll do it for the last one as well. For this one, maybe I don't want the data label actually for my line chart. So I can come here to my line chart and I'll switch off the data label. I'll bring back the y-axis for this one. So maybe I'm fine with all of this. Now, I just quickly want to add Joseph. Are we still within our time?
Within our time. So
Okay. How many minutes do we have more?
we have 6, but I think everyone is enjoying the class. Can we extend it to maybe 5:05? Is that fine by everyone?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So,
Yes.
okay, great. All right. So now let's quickly do one or two more things. So I'll just this one, let me just format one so that we can so the same way you select one and then come here to your visualization, format your visual. And for this one, I can come to the general and come to effect. And for background, I can change the background. So that is looking very ugly now. And for this, I can come here to my visual, my callout value, and the color, can change this to white. Maybe this will look better. Yeah, I think it does. And for the category label, that's what we can see below. So you can come here and format this, change this. The black is not fine. So maybe something like off-white. I don't know if that's what it's called. So once you do this for one as well, you can give this a shadow as well. Okay, so it just raises it up a bit, and I do center. That's just personal preference. Of course, we can play with all of these. Once you're done with one, just go and select your format painter, use it on the other ones, go on like that, and then use it just to format every other one on your report. Okay, so we have all of this nicely done. The other thing we may want to do is this. Maybe on all of this report, we want to allow our user to be able to select, to be able to filter the entire report by some things. For instance, maybe as at now, let's look at our data view. So if I come to my data view and I select the year, you see that we have 3 years here, 2014, 2015, 2016. Maybe you want to allow the user to be able to select 2015, if that is the report you want to see. I want to allow them to be able to select 2014, if that is what interests them. How do we do that? So we have a nice visual in Power BI that can do that for us. And that is what they call a slicer. So if I come to my visualizations page here, you see this visual here with this funnel. So it's called a slicer. So if I select slicer, see, it gives me a placeholder that I can place here. And now it's asking me that how do I want to slice my report? What is the field? It's just expecting a field. So I can come to the calendar here, and I select year. So I want to slice by year. I select year, and immediately that drops on my slicer. But what is happening here is because my year is a numbers column, that's why it's giving me an option to type in directly. Okay, but what I can do is I can select this drop down here, this drop down. If I select that, I can change my slicer to a list. So if I select a list, then give me a list. So when I go on to select 2014, observe what happens to my report. Everything filters down to 2014. If I select 2015, everything updates to 2015. If I select 2016, everything changes. Why do we have blanks? Because we do not have data for 2016 technically. So let's confirm that on my report. So if I come to my fact sales table, and I come here to this one, let's see the last year that we have. Technically, we have just 2015. So 30th June 2015, that's where our data ends. And that's the reason why we do not have, it returned blanks for 2016. So we just deselect that. And we can even go on because 2016 does not have data. So why do we need to have it here? So you can have your slicer selected like this. Come to your format, come to your filters pane, just the same way we applied some filters. Then come to your filters pane, and here on the year, select the drop down, and then instead of doing advanced filtering, let's do a basic filtering. And instead of having everything, we'll just want to see 2014 on the slicer and 2015. So because 2016 does not have data, so we don't actually need to have it on the slicer. So you don't confuse your users. So I can then go on to select 2015. If filters down to 2015, I can select 2016. Everything filters down to 2014 rather. And once you're done filtering, you can select it again and it goes off. So that's the slicer. There are a lot of formatting that we can do on the slicer. You can turn it to a button. You can do a lot of things on this, but because of our time, we're going to stop it here. And the other thing we might want to do is our report should have a title. That's very much recommended. There should be a title for your report so that anybody that's looking at this, they have a sense of what they are looking at. How is this done? So just the same way we do in Microsoft Word, Excel, or the Microsoft products. So you have this insert tab. So you can click on insert. Once you click on insert, then you see some options here. You can insert a text box, you can insert a button, you can insert shapes, you can insert images. So select a text box. And once I select a text box, I'll just see if I can move this somewhere to the top here. And then I want to resize this slightly. Okay, I think I selected it twice, so I'll remove this one. So this is the text box. So let's say I want to call this sales report. So I'll just type sales report. Then I want to format this. So you can do Control A to format. So once you do Control A, let me resize this slightly so that I can see this. So I can change my font. Maybe I want to use Sego Bold, and then font size, but have it highlighted. Do Control A first before you do formatting, or before you type, you adjust all this formatting. So both works. So let's say I do 18. The font color, maybe I want to change that to, maybe I can't even see a color that I like here. I can go to more colors and I can come to this blue, and then I can select something like this. Remember, I told you I'm bad with colors, so you can do that. And then we want to make it bold, want to centralize. All these are formatting that you can do. So once you're fine with what you have, you click out, then you have this. And again, you may want to just add a bit more stuff to this. Maybe you want to differentiate where your title is from where your report is. So I can come to insert again, come to shapes, come to this line, can place it somewhere here, and then I can bring this here. I can just draw it to the right like this. So maybe it just shows me that this is where my report is. So I can format this line so that it does not look totally odd. So under the formats, I can come to style and its color. I can change this to maybe this color. So we have done all of this. Okay, this is the view. So now I need to come to, I think the border is what I need to come to for this. So I'll do that and you see it has changed. So that is the line, that's sort of the outline. So a lot of things you can do on your report. The last thing I just want to show us is how do we bring in more visuals? Assuming that you have the visuals that you have here, they are not things you want to use on your report for some reasons, they would not serve the purpose. So you have the opportunity to bring in more visuals into Power BI. But for you to do that, you need to have an account. So as of now, you see that I'm signed in. So I have an account. So I'm signed in here. So you need to have an account as well. So if you you can use your student email address if you still have one valid, but if you don't have your student email address working, I would advise that you open a developer account. Maybe we have done that in the previous session, but if we haven't, we need to open a Microsoft developer account. There are videos on YouTube that can guide you on how to do that. Once you do that, you get an email that you can use on Microsoft product to get some very cool functionality of those products. It will end in .onmicrosoft.com. That is what the email would end in. The same way you have your domain to end on Gmail, .outlook.yahoo. So that one would end on .onmicrosoft.com. So you need to be signed in. So once you're signed in, then you come to your visualizations. So under your visualization, you see these ellipses here. Once you hover on it, you see this information, get more visuals. I'll click on that. And then it's asking me, how do I want to get more visuals? I want to get more visuals. I want to import a visual from a file. So maybe you have downloaded a visual online, maybe from Microsoft community, you have downloaded a visual, you can import it, or you want to remove a visual, you want to restore to default. Restore to default means that you have some custom visuals already, but you want to delete all of them, restore your Power BI back to the default. So I'll select get more visual. Once I do that, it would launch up the marketplace. Just a moment. Okay, it's loading up. So this is the marketplace, and we have loads of visuals, thousands of visuals here. So you can see as I'm scrolling down, you have just loads of visuals here. But let's say you want to, you are not sure of what you need. Then you can come to this filter, click on the drop down and select something. Maybe you want to see a visual that will show KPI. So you can select KPI, or you want to see a visual that will show filters. If I select filters, this is meant to return. You can see everything that I have here. There are some things that I can do filters on. This text filter, this is drill down, this is filter by list and stuff. But I want to search. So let me go back to all, and then I can go on to now search. So let me search for scroller, for instance. I have scroller because I know this visual, so that's why I'm able to search. So I can click on this scroller, but because I already have it, so it will just show you some information. So this scroller is saying that you can add, you can download sample and stuff. This is, if you come to this pricing here, under this pricing, you see that this is free. So you can use this for free. For some other visual, you see that you have to pay something before you can use it. So be aware of that. So once you have this is free, you can go on to add, and then it comes onto your report. So if I had, because I already do have it, so so it's even saying that so successfully imported, which is fine. So this is the scroller here. I have the scroller here. This is the visual. So how then can I use that on my report? Let me just resize this guy slightly. So I just want to adjust this guys here. And then let me add my scroller. So this is the scroller. I'll click on it. Sorry. What's happened now is that I had this line chart selected when I clicked on scroller. So when you do that, Power BI will assume you want to change that visual. But if you want to add, you don't want to change the visual that's already there, click outside, don't let anything be selected, and then you can go on to now click on that visual. So I have this visual here. I'll just place it somewhere here. I can resize this so that it sits nicely here. Then I can go on to my view. So what do I want to see on my scroller? maybe I want to see, let me see what will be interesting to see. Let's see our model. So I want to see the model and I want to see it by revenue, for instance. I want to see this by revenue and then, yeah. So model by revenue. So it's actually happening already, but because it seems this space is small, that's why we're not seeing it. So if I make it a bit bigger, you see now that we have our model and we have our revenue figures all scrolling, just like interesting to see the way they do headlines on news and stuff. But let's format these our numbers. Let's see if we can format our revenue figures. So I can come to my data view. I can come to my fact sales. And then for my revenue, click on revenue. And now it's showing all numbers. Yes, it's fine. You want to make it comma separated. So I'll just click on this comma so that it formats it, comma separated. So once it does that, I think that should affect what we see on our report as well. Our numbers should be comma separated. So it is a lot readable now. So if just so that we conserve our space, let me remove this title from the scroller. I'll just come here. I'll come to scroller. I think it's general. Yes, I'll come to general and then I'll remove the title. And so I can now bring this back down and hopefully we still see what's happening. So let me just bring this. Just want to bring this down so it's not overlapping. Yeah. So that's technically it. So we have built a report now. It may not be so nice to see, but I know you can do better with design, you can do better with a lot of additions that you had to this. This is just me, I'm a guy, so I don't know much of colors. I don't know how to combine this, but we understand the technicalities behind it. We understand how we can put things together on our report so that things are nice, so that we have some information to present to our audience and things are just working. Okay, so Joseph, over to you. Thanks a lot, everybody.
Thank you very much, Muhsin. It was a really interesting question. It's interesting session rather. So I don't know. Do anybody have questions just for a few minutes before Muhsin leaves? I know Muhsin is quite busy.
All right. I have a question.
Okay, Pelumi, please shoot.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Muhsin. It's quite interesting section. Sincerely, I learned a lot. So my concern here is about the units sold by markets that we did for top 5 and the below 5. So I was like, how do we let our audience know that this is top 5, this is below 5? The formatting, because we just have units sold by market, units sold by market. Is there a way to go about that, sir?
Excellent question. Thanks a lot, Pelumi. I would address that now. Folorenshaw, please come up with your question. So hopefully I take the two together.
Can you hear me?
You sound a bit low. Can you be more audible?
Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear you, but it's very faint.
For the
Okay.
training, yeah, I really enjoy the section. Okay, so what I want to ask is that I don't know if I want to carry out, let's say, regression analysis or let's say correlation analysis. Is it possible with Power BI visualization? And if it is possible, which chart am I going to use for that?
Okay, thank you very much, Folorenshaw, for that. What I would say is that for some analytics you want to do, probably you want to do some, what's it called? Some regression, some correlation, as the case may be. Remember, for your correlation, you can always use your scatter plot to observe if your data plots are correlated in a way. So, but there are certain calculations that Power BI can also do for you by default. But this is dependent on the kind of visual that you're using. So what I will do now is that if I select on this line chart, as I have it now, if I select on this line chart and I come to visualizations, if you come here, this is this last button here. Remember, the second one is to format. The last one is the analytics. So if I click on that, you have some analytics that you can do directly within Power BI. So maybe you want to see how the minimum line, a maximum line, an average line, a median. You can do your percentile, you can do your bars and stuff. So, but some in-depth analytics like your regression, you can't do that by default in Power BI. It won't work by default. So, but the way to do that is if you can do your regression with what's it called? You can do it in Python. So if you have your Python script for your regression, then you can visualize that in Power BI. So we have, if I come to my visualizations pane, you have a Python visual. So if I select this Python visual here, it will ask me to type in my Python script. So it's expecting a Python script. So once you type in your Python script, then it will visualize the result of that for you. So that is the way that you can use to now, advance your analytics in Power BI. If you're good in Python or you are good with R, you have written your script in Python, maybe you have used some Python libraries, your Seaborn, your scikit-learn, your matplotlib, your pandas, you have written that, copy that script, maybe from your Jupyter notebook or your VS Code, copy it and come and paste here. Once you paste here, Power BI will load up the result of that script for you. And the same thing, that's Python script. You can have the R visual as well. So you click on your R visual, it changes to R script. So it's expecting a script. You can type it in here and you're good on the fly. Follow on, Shaw, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, thanks very much.
Great. All right, so let me return this to my line chart. Here's my line. I'll return this to line and it's back. Okay, so for your question, Pelumi, all of these titles that we have on the chart, you can modify them. All the titles that you have, they are not static. So if I come to my unit sold by market, once you are on it, come to format. And when you get to format, you come to general, and then you come to title. Say that's what we have on the title. That's what Power BI thought of, because we selected our unit sold column and we selected our market column. So if I come to this text here and I wipe out everything that's there, I can say this is top 10 markets. You need to observe as you're typing, you may not quickly pick what you're typing sometimes. Top 10 markets by units sold. Okay, so once you do that, you see that your visual updates to top 10 markets. You can do the same thing to this. Select this one. I went into the focus mode. So the focus mode is where you see only that visual. So I come back here. So how do you get to the focus mode? You have, once you selected the visual, you see 3 icons. See one for filter, you see the next one is for focus mode, and it just takes you to a window where you are looking at only that visual. So you can come back to this. So I'll do the same thing for you. I select the visual. On the general, you see the text here. Highlight everything, make it bottom, then markets by units sold. Sorry, I think we did bottom 5, not bottom 10. So I'll change this to bottom 5. And immediately you see that our chart updates. So all these titles, they are not static. You can modify all these titles that we have here. Pelumi, are you good? Excellent. All right. I think we don't have any more question. Joseph.
Okay, thank you very much, Muhsin. Thank you, everyone, for your time. And see how Muhsin has exhausted himself a lot. Yeah. Okay, I can see Oluwaseun question. So can you quickly ask that before I send Muhsin off?
Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for this opportunity and thanks for your time, sir. So I have a question on what cloud. I've worked with what cloud before. So there was a time when I was working with what cloud. I forgot what I did on that chat. So I was working on another chat like histogram. So I made a mistake whereby I pressed Ctrl Z, but I just see that my word cloud disappeared. So what can lead to that? So I have to go back to online Power BI Health Service to download it again, to add it again, for me to have it appear on my data visualization.
Okay.
So what can lead to that? Sir?
Okay. So what I'm thinking at the moment is what your Control Z would do for you is it will undo the most recent change that you had on your report. So if I do something now, let's say I just bring in this visual here, multi-row card, and I do Control Z. So it's meant to take that off. That was the most recent change that I had to my report. So maybe you did something on your word cloud after you had done something on your maybe the other visual you mentioned. And what Power BI can see was that the thing that you adjusted something on last was a word cloud. That was why you lost it. And unfortunately, in Power BI, I'm not sure we have Control Y. I don't know if it works, but I think it should work. I'm thinking. So, but you have some buttons at the top here. This one would, this is undo and this is redo. So if I do redo, I'm thinking my chart should come back. So hopefully this is what you do. So once you lose something by Control Z, you can always come to the top here and click on this redo button, and that thing should surface.
I tried on that day. Yes,
You
sir.
tried it, right?
I tried I tried on that day whereby I click on that button for me to get it back. So the next thing I just have to go back to Power BI service to add it again for me to
Yes.
have it back.
And this is not like Excel. If it's Excel, if you are done like even up to a 50, different changes on your Excel file, you can undo all and you can redo all. So Excel tracks in the cache, it tracks in the cache those changes that you have made, but that's not totally it with Power BI. Power BI would only undo or redo, I think, one or two of the most recent that you've done. So it doesn't track
Okay.
more than.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, just up.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you very much, Muhsin. It has been a wonderful session. I know we all have questions and we all had questions. Thank you for your time. Thank you for answering that. So I will drop the recording for today's session in the chat. So let's all practice and see you next week. Thank you, Muhsin. You can.
All right, thank you everybody. Bye for now.
Thank you, sir.
Sir. Thank you.